you have faith. There's no. This is, I think, where it's important to separate reason from faith. Is I'm not going to prove it, and you don't need proof. You believe, and so having embarked on that path, I find what I read strengthens that faith more and more each day. And it's a pity, and this is sort of a statement to my fellow atheists, to lead a life of constantly fortifying yourself against faith. And then in that way, you create a counterfaith in non-faith. And you don't allow even a tiny opening, because you're creating these barriers around, you don't allow any. We used to say, one thing I liked about the Enlightenment, and I still do, is don't prejudge. Come, to the table with no preconceived notions about what you're going to hear or see. And that's not what my fellow atheists were doing. They were just really fortifying themselves against ever believing. And they had very solid preconceived notions.
Can atheism offer hope? Is it possible for an atheist and a Christian to find common ground in their search for truth? Well, in this riveting exchange between Ayaan Hirsi Ali and Alex O'Connor, we delve into questions that challenge the very foundation of belief and non-belief. Does atheism provide a sufficient explanation for life's meanings and purpose? Or does Christianity truly offer the peace and truth it claims? You'll be surprised by the profound insights and candid moments in this discussion. Whether you are a skeptic or a seeker or a believer, this is a conversation you can't afford to miss. Stay until the end for a powerful conclusion that could change how you view faith, reason, and humanity. Share your take. Do you agree or disagree? And if you support the spread of the gospel and the defense of Christianity, feel free to buy us a coffee, link in the description below. Let's go ahead and dive in.
And then that in itself became a gospel of its own. And so there is the new atheism. This is what we believe in, versus the people who believe in God. And then again, it has of a tribal element to it, where this is, that's you and that's me.
People listening will think, well, no, atheism is just a disbelief in God. Here's a worldview that's being presented to me, and I'm saying I don't believe it. What is, in your view, as formerly one of the most important figures in the New Atheist movement, what can you now see as the gospel of New Atheism? What is that? What is New Age 10 Commandments? What does it look like as a worldview?
I think the reason why it was called New Atheism was that it had this, this evangelizing aspect to it. Because yes, you're right, atheism, or to be an atheist, is simply to take on the attitude of, say, I don't think there's any proof. Convince me. If I see evidence of the existence of God, I might change my mind. So that attitude hardened into something along the lines of, there is no proof. There is no evidence. Therefore, I don't believe in God. And not only that, people who believe in God are wicked, they're dangerous, they're stupid, they're superstitious. And therefore, we must evangelize against them. And I think in hindsight, I'm speaking for myself, that was a very unhealthy attitude to take, because you close off so much. For me, it's the statement that all religions are the same. They are not. I grew up as a Muslim. I'm a Christian now. They're completely different. So it was a huge mistake to throw them all in one bucket and make this general statement about all religions being the same. Number one. Number two, I think that because of this attitude, religion is, it's superstition. It's untrue. It's unintelligent. I think a false dichotomy was created about, you can either have faith, you can be religious, or you can be a man of reason, but you can't be both. And that, I think, then created even more confusion, especially for young people looking for role models, looking to answer the question, what's the purpose and meaning of life? Why are we here? How do I relate to my fellow human beings? What's the good life? So those are two major ones. And then three, I think the organizing and then trying to mobilize people to choose atheism with both of these points, that I think then all it did was weaken and degenerate belief in Christianity, and it strengthened other religions. It strengthened Islam because it's consistent with what, for instance, members of the Muslim Brotherhood say about Christianity. They say it's false, it's weak, Muhammad is the last word. And so you listen to the atheists and they're saying it themselves. And it also opened, I think, the door for other pseudo-religions. Many of us have been discussing what wokeism, and in many ways it has, I know it is neo-Marxism or it's cultural Marxism as some call it, but it is with religious zeal that some people believe in it. And don't question it. And there is this void, this spiritual need that people have. And they found it in wokeism, because wokeism insists on justice, and young people seeking to do what is right and what's good and what's just now find it in these either false gods or are in fact converting to Islam, or are feeling quite frustrated with their own legacy. They've been told Christianity is synonymous with, it's the religion of the white man. And the white man, the white heterosexual man, is an exploiter, a slaveholder, a colonizer. He's awful. And so you can't be Christian, you have to be something else. And I think that in itself has created a lot of, and I think it's unintended, but anxieties, depressions, confusion. And so these are all things that we have to grapple with.
There will have been a time when you believed that religion was not just wrong, but evil, a bad force for the world, wrapped up in this new atheist movement. You've had a personal change in conviction. You've had something speak to you and quite clearly transform you as a person. You said that you've been reading the Gospels, reading the Old Testament. When you come across these verses that you yourself probably would have once cited as problems with the Christian religion, when you read these difficult passages in the Old Testament that seem to be condoning all kinds of things, slavery and genocide, when you look in the New Testament at Paul's assessment of the position of women, the kind of thing that an atheist looks at and says, this is why Christianity, whether it's true or false, is definitely evil. Outside of the sort of effect of the Christian religion, in other words, the doctrine itself, when you come across these verses, how does Christian Ayaan deal with that and react to that differently to how atheist Ayaan would have done?
So atheist Ayaan would have come with that fortified, closed mind of what I'm reading is just an old text written by people who are afraid of the world and afraid of the dark, and all the other stereotypes. And then new Ayaan, having now really seen the key differences between different religions, is now curious. I come to it with great curiosity, with, yes, so if these things are in the Old Testament, then what? And then what you see is this evolution, not just in the text itself, but also the adherence to the text. You see, and I find quite fascinating, the enormous fights that people had within churches, and what is the interpretation of this verse, of that gospel, of this chapter, or what was Jesus trying to say? And the constant battle with the human condition, the recognition that is trying to understand the human condition, maybe what's called a sin in the Bible is what in modern day life we call impulses and urges and character defects, whatever you want to call them. But the product then is an incredible, really wealthy output of wisdom. And again, even if you don't believe in God, or you refuse to believe in God because you can't see it, it would be such a pity not to partake of this wisdom, not to consider it. I'll give you one example. In the years that I was in therapy, I would see, there was all of these rational conclusions to this is how you respond to a certain situation. I was diagnosed with PTSD. Part of it was because Theo van Gogh was murdered and my non-response to my trying to shut off that experience, but also a lot of what went on in my childhood and trying to shut that off. And the advice you get through the books and the study based on studies of the human condition, the conclusions they reach and the advice they give now is plainly in the Bible and it's for free. And so there's a great deal of, wow.
What is it that you find in the Bible that you would also find as a result of that kind of therapy?
One thing that therapists insist on when you come from a very damaged background in childhood like I did is this lack of being loved and the fear of abandonment and rejection. And now reading the message of Jesus, it's this abundant love. God gave you life and he loves you and his life is unconditional. It's an infinite. I think, is it John 12? And when I read that now, part of me thinks, again, processing this with a number of other patients or a number of other broken people, I think, you guys, you got this for free. I mean, it's like, it's in your culture. You could have just gone to church. You could have talked to you. You don't need to be in this, institution to come to this conclusion. Because when I was growing up, my idea of God was not a God who loved you unconditionally and infinitely. It was a God who gave you a little manual of halals and harams. This is what's right and that's what's wrong. And veering away from what's right and doing what's wrong, which is the human condition. Again, your impulses, your urges, you are very rebellious. So you would be punished, and many times over on earth and in the hereafter. And that's only strengthened the feelings of self-hatred and self-loathing and shame and terror. So you live in this constant state of terror. Life becomes unbearable. So there's some of those things. And when I tell you I'm going to try and answer some of these questions in more detail in the book, this is just a small foretaste of it. Is you have inherited a culture and a religious tradition that is much more suited to understanding and to empowering and enriching the human condition with all its frailties, with all its brokenness, than the one that millions and millions of other people are born into. And you can see why, even though on a personal level, yes, I find I'm at peace with it. I'm really, really happy. But then you look up and you look at the world and everything you see around you are all these challenges, and you just want to say, it's really not that difficult. We've made it difficult. And you don't have to choose between faith and reason. You can have both of them. And in fact, I find Christianity a religion of reason, much more about reason than anything else.
I want to ask you about the cultural impact of the Christian worldview, but I do also want to really press this idea that those problems that you identified in the Christian religion will still exist.
Point number 1, faith versus blind, pitiless indifference. Alex O'Connor highlights Richard Dawkins' assertion that life is governed by blind, pitiless indifference. Ayaan counters by describing Christianity as offering a profound sense of purpose and meaning, contrasting it with atheism's materialistic, naturalistic framework. Life without faith is like a blank canvas with no artist. There's no intention or beauty, only randomness. And the Bible tells us that the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Reflect on how belief in a creator shapes your view of purpose, beauty in life. Ask yourself, does atheism's explanation satisfy your heart's deepest questions? I highly doubt it. Point number 2, Ayaan's journey from atheism to faith. Ayaan Hirsi describes her journey as deeply personal, stemming from a place of darkness, fear, and confusion. Her path to Christianity began with acknowledging her spiritual bankruptcy and opening herself up to the possibility of God. Imagine walking in a pitch dark forest only to see a distant light leading you home. This is the hope faith in Christ offers, my friends. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. If you're struggling with darkness or despair, take a step towards the light of Christ, my friends. Through prayer and openness, through the Word of God, may you find his presence. Point number 3, the legacy of Christianity in Western civilization. Ayaan emphasizes Christianity's foundational role in shaping Western values of freedom, reason, and human dignity. She contrasts this legacy with the destructive void left by New Atheism. A house stands firm only when built on solid foundation, and Western civilization's foundation is Christianity. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Psalms 127:1. We need to recognize, my friends, that the blessings of a culture influenced by Christianity is vast. Commit to living out Christ's teachings to strengthen your community, your relationships, and your life. Point number 4, Ayaan's reflections on New Atheism. Ayaan critiques New Atheism for equating all religions and fostering a worldview devoid of hope or ultimate meaning. She argues that rejecting Christianity while embracing materialism creates a spiritual void. And when we remove a compass from a sailor, it doesn't eliminate the need for direction, it just leaves a void. It leaves them lost at sea. The Bible tells us that for the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight. We need to challenge the assumptions of materialism and seek the deeper truths offered by faith. Don't settle for intellectual skepticism. Ask the hard questions. And finally, number 5, the danger of the evangelizing atheism. Ayaan observes the militant atheism often mirrored this rigid and this passionate critique of all religions, it closes off curiosity. It closes off exploration. And Alex acknowledges this critique while emphasizing the importance of questioning assumptions. You see, a locked door keeps out threats, but it also prevents you from exploring what lies around. The Bible tells us, "Seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened unto you." We need to cultivate an attitude of open-mindedness towards faith and be willing to explore what lies beyond your current beliefs, beyond the material world. Faith isn't just a blind leap, it's a step towards light. It's a step towards the Creator who fills the void with purpose and meaning. Seek the shepherd in the shadows, witness the Messiah through the mess, discover the way in the wilderness, focus on the bread of life instead of the burdens, and embrace Him today.